Dear students, welcome to the class of business mathematics again. Our today's topic is piecewise linear functions and its applications. This is the third lecture of this topic, and today we want to understand tax function. In our previous class, we discussed y equal to mx plus c, which is cost function, where y indicates total cost and mx indicates variable cost and c indicates fixed cost, where m is the variable cost per unit and x is the number of units. And today the tax function we denote by again y is the tax and mx is the m is the tax rate per unit or per dollar, and x is the total income. So the difference between cost function and tax function, you see there is no c in the tax function. Why? Since if one do not use any, for example, electricity or gas, he or she need to pay meter charge or customer charge. But in the case of tax function, if one do not has any income x, for example income 0, then he don't need to pay any tax. His tax will be 0. So putting these things in your mind, y equal to mx will be the tax function. But one can denote tax function by t and income, total income, by I. So tax function can be also like this, ti equal mi. But in this lecture I want to denote tax function by y equal to mx. So let me say it again. Here y is the tax, total tax or tax function, and x is the total income, m is the rate of tax per unit or per dollar. So let us solve problem 1. In this lecture I am going to solve two problems related to tax function, and which is also an application of piecewise linear function. Let us read the question first. The 1990 US federal tax rate for single individuals was as follows: 15% on an adjusted gross income AGI between 0 and this amount. So this is the first piece. If one has income between 0 and 19,450, he or she need to pay 15% tax. So our first function will be like this: y equal 15%, which is 0.15 x, where x is in between 0 and 19,450. This is our first function, our first piece. And second piece, it says this amount plus 28% on the excess over 19,450 on an AGI between 19,450 and $47,050. So if one income is in between this amount, 19,450 and 47,050, he or she need to pay 28% tax. But note that for the first 19,450, the tax calculation will be exactly same like the previous one, 15%. So if you calculate tax for 19,450 by replacing x here by 19,450, then it will be $2917.5, which is given in your question. So in that case you don't need to calculate this amount since it is given in your question. But if this amount is not given in your question, in that case you need to calculate this amount by putting 19,450 here in this equation. So the second equation will be 2917.5 plus 28% of the income, 28% for the remaining part, plus 28% for the remaining part. Remaining part means x minus 19,450. And similarly, the third piece will be what? You see, this amount plus 33% on the excess over this amount on an AGI between $47,050 and $97,620. So the third piece will start from here, $10,645.5 plus 33%. You see, it will be like this: 10,645.5 plus 33% for the remaining part. Remaining part means you need to subtract the highest range, the highest amount of the previous range. That is the remaining part, x minus $47,050. So after calculation, if you calculate or if you simplify this part, it will be like this. And how can you simplify it? If you just multiply this and this one, you will get this one. And if you multiply 0.33 into 47,050, then add this amount, you will get this one. So the third piece is for this range, 47,050 to 97,620. Now combining equation 1, 2 and 3, we get the required tax function, which is y equal to 0.15x when x is in between 0 and 19,450. And this equation for 19,450 to 47,050. Note that 19,450 is included in the first range. So I did not put here equal sign. I just put less than. And same thing is true for the third range. I put less than here. So 47,050 is included in the second range. Now how can we solve B? This is the tax function, and how can we draw the graph? I will discuss graph later. But now B, how much tax would a single individual pay on an AGI of $15,000? So you see $15,000 is in the first range, $15,000. Therefore you need to put 15,000 here instead of x in the first function. So it means y for 15,000 is equal 0.15 into 15,000, which is this. And the next one, if the AGI is $35,000, then what will be the total tax? That we can calculate from the second function, because 35,000 is within this range. So we just need to replace x by 35,000 in the second function to get the total tax, which is this. and for 85,000 it will be in the third range. So we need to use the third equation, y equal to 0.33 into 85,000 minus 4881. Just we need to replace x by $85,000 in the third equation, and the result is this. This is the total tax for an AGI of $85,000. Now E is a bit complicated to understand. You see, E, what was the individual's AGI if taxes are this amount? Here you are given Y, this is your tax, and you need to calculate AGI, means X, adjusted gross income. Here your total tax is $10,071. So the question is, which function you need to use? If your tax is either this amount or less than this amount, you need to use the first equation. However, if your tax is bigger than this amount but less than this amount, you need to use second function. But if your tax is bigger than this amount, you need to use third one. Here your tax is 10,071, which is bigger than this amount and less than this amount. So you must need to use the second equation. So if you replace y in the second equation by $10,071.5, you can calculate your AGI, which is $45,000. This is the result. Now the question is, how can we draw the graph of our tax function? This is our tax function, and here you have three straight lines, and note that first line start at 0 and end at 19,450. Second line start the point where the first line end, and second line end at 47,050. Third line end at 97,620. And also note that the gradient or slope is bigger in the second line. So second line will be a bit steep than the first line, and third line will be more steep than the second line. Now how can we sketch the first line? Start at 0 and end at 19,450, and second line start at 19,450 and end at here. Third line start at here and end at this point. So there are exactly 4 points you need to sketch three straight lines, because when x equal to 0 in the first line, y will be 0. So the first line will start from 0 0 and end at 19,450. When x equal to 19,450 in this equation, y will be 2917.5. we already have this data in our hand, so now we can easily sketch the first line, because this point is 19,450 comma 2917.5. Now the question is, why I consider this distance here, because in that case you need to consider the slope of the first line. The slope is very small, which is 0.15. We know a standard line which passes in this way, making 45-degree angle with the x-axis. This line has slope 1. So if you compare this slope, the slope of this line and slope of this line, you can easily understand that this line will be steeper, less steep than this line, so it will be like this. So when you draw this line, when you consider this point, will be where you need to consider the slope of the line. And for the second line will start from this point but end at this point, and we have this data in our hand. So in this case you also need to consider the slope of the second line, which is 0.28. so the second line will be a bit steeper than the first line. So let us consider this point here. So the second line will be like this one, and you need to put the coordinate of initial point of the first line, which is 0 0, and coordinate of this point is 47050, comma 10,645.5. And now let us draw the third line. Third line will start from this point and end at, if you put x equal to this figure 97,620, then y will be 27,333.6. and now the question is, where should be this point? In that case also you need to look the slope of the third line. You see the slope is a bit bigger than the second line. So if you extend the second line, it will move in this way. Therefore third line will be a bit steeper than the second line. So it will be like this, and it will end here. The coordinate of this point is 97,620 to 7333.6. And you don't need to put any arrow sign here, because this line, this is a closed interval, so the third line will end at this point. And this is the graph of your tax function. Now let us try to understand the second problem. Second problem is exactly same like the first problem, but let me show you. Here the tax rate is 15%, 28%, and 33% like before. And 15% tax if one has income within this amount, and 28% tax if one has income within this amount. But note that for the first 32,450, the tax is exactly same like before, which is 15%, and 15% of 32,445 is this amount. So your first function will be like this. First piece, y1 equal 0.15x when income is within this amount. When a married couple income is within this range, then this is the tax function. And when a married couple income is bigger than this amount, then for the remaining part the tax is 28%. But for the first 32,450, this amount is the tax. So y2 will be this amount plus 28% of the remaining part. And if you simplify this equation, you will get this result. This result is for the for the income within this range. And for the third case, 33% is tax for the amount which is bigger than 78,400. But for the first 78,400, if you put here 78,400, you will get this result. but this is already given in your question. You see, this is given in your question, this amount plus 33% for the remaining part. So combining three pieces together, this is your cost function. Now you can solve the remaining part by putting the figure in the text function. For example, B, what amount will be the tax for this income 15,000? You must need to put in the first equation because this is within this range, and for this income you should put in the second equation, this one, and for the tax calculation of this amount you need to put in the third range or third equation. And again, if the tax is this amount, what will be the couple's income? So in this case, your tax is less than this amount but bigger than this amount. So you should use the second function. You should replace y in the second function to get the corresponding total income. So you see, if you replace y in the second function, you will get the corresponding income. So now let us try to understand how can we sketch the tax function. So here we have three straight lines. First line will start at 0 0 and end at this point, and we already have this data. When x equal to this 30 through 2450, y equal 4867.8. So the first line will start from 0 0 and end at this point, and you see the slope is very small. That's why I consider this point here, since we know for the standard case, if a line passes through this OA making 45-degree angle with the x-axis, it has slope 1. So that's why this line will be less steep than the standard line. And for the second line, we will start at this point and end at this point, because if you put 78400 here in the second equation, y will be this. We already have this data. So the second line will be like this. This is the second line, and the third line will be a bit steeper than the second line, since the slope of the third line is bigger than the second line. So, and if you put this figure in the third equation, 1,62,770, the y will be this. So the third line will start from here and end at this point. And you see the third line is a bit steeper than the second line. So this is the graph of your tax function, and that's all. Thank you very much for listening.